I
wear.
bro, we're recording, and you're putting on your glasses now, and you're looking like Poindexter over there, bro. Listen, all
Clark
right,
Kent.
we're recording now, and this isn't very professional because this is one of my best friends in the wrestling business, Irish Pat Kenney, Simon Diamond, bro. Who's more gray, you or me? Seriously?
You are. You
Yeah,
are.
but bro, I'm a lot older too.
How old are you now?
I'm 54.
I'm 47.
Yeah, bro. I don't know what you may be looking like Santa Claus by the time you're 54, bro.
Yeah, but bro, who cares? Who am I trying to impress?
Bro, would you ever like, bro? Sometimes, like, my wife hints to me, like, about that comb on color stuff, and I'm like, no, no way in hell. Would you ever do that, bro?
Well, I did the full beard. I had like this big bushy beard. It was like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And I dyed it. Bro, I looked ridiculous.
Oh, bro, you dyed it black, bro.
Yeah, it was
Oh
ridiculous.
my gosh.
Ridiculous.
All, all right, Irish Pat Simon. I hate. I have to call you Simon Diamond. People know you at Simon Diamond, and oh,
Oh,
bro,
you hated that
I
name.
hated that
You
name.
hated that
I
name.
hate, but now, bro, ECW's back and better than ever on the WWE. Forget that, bro. Forget that. Irish, you know what I want to have a talk with you about? We're here on Wrestling Inc., and I like to bring an insider's viewpoint to the fans, things that, like, they don't really understand. And I think you'll appreciate this. I think this will be a great talk between you and I, and I'll tell you why, bro. Irish, you know how many times on the internet sites when I was writing in the wrestling business, do you know how many times I got blamed for bad matches and finishes in matches? Like, people really have no idea whatsoever of the relationship and the duties between the writers, the agents, and the wrestlers.
Yeah.
Now, you've been an agent for TNA for a very, very long time, right? How long now, bro?
And five?
I think it's been longer than that, no?
You know what? You know when it started? It was right before it was. When we went to India, me, Sanjay, me, and Shark Boy, which was still to this day my greatest foreign trip, my greatest international trip. We were over there for 2 weeks. And India is oh my god, we want to talk about eye-opening experience. Very similar to that movie Slumdog Millionaire, but we were treated like kings, and it was just me, Sanjay, and Shark Boy. And I remember Andy Barton calling me like 2 days before the thing, and he's like, "You're in charge. You're in charge over there, and you have just make the right decision." And I remember the first day we're over there, they came to us and they were like, they want to cancel the show because of the rain. It'd been raining for like 4 days, right? So they were really afraid of setting up this equipment was already set up. And they said the only problem is there's like 15,000 fans already set up
Wait,
already for you guys.
wait a minute, Irish. Was it an outdoor show?
Yeah, it wasn't a wrestling show. It was me, Sanjay. We had just done the deal with ESPN Star.
Okay.
So we were going over there to promote it. And what we were doing, it was like a Bollywood show. Like I would come out, like they built this bro, awesome. They built this brick wall, right? Because originally I think it was supposed to be Abyss, but something happened, so they sent me. Okay. So they built this big brick wall, and I'm standing behind it, and they play my music, and I burst through this, you know, like, because I was considered a big guy compared to, the people of India, my
Right,
lord.
right.
And then Shark Boy would come out, and they had these Russian dancers with us, and they had this big remember in gym class the parachute
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like that, and he was and then Sanjay would come out with a flag, and then Sanjay and Shark Boy would thank everybody, and I'd come out, Simon has a problem.
And you did the whole gimmick, bro. The
And they're
whole
like
gimmick.
this and
All
did
right.
the deal, and then we'd start a little thing, and then Sanjay would dive on me, and then they'd play music, and he'd dance around, and off we went. And this thing lasted about a little over an hour. We did it every night. So the first night they come, they're like, the rain, we want to shut the show down. And the only problem is there's like 15,000 people out there already. I said, well, we got to do it. He's like, are you sure? I said, yeah. Well, it's flooded. How are we going to get to the rain? I said, we'll figure it out. I said, if there's 15,000 people out there, we got to go. So we do the show, right? So then after the show, the guy comes up to me who was kind of like in charge on the You know, I was like in charge of our TNA, and he was in charge of ESPN. So he comes to me and he says, "What time are we going through everything tomorrow?" I said, "What? What do you mean? What time are we going through it? We're gonna have a, dress rehearsal." I go, "Dress? This is pro wrestling. It's one. It's live.
That's
One
right.
act.
One and done, baby.
One take. That's it. You can't do it in one take. Get out. Get out." And I mean, bro, I wish they had a film crew there for when he came up to me with this dress rehearsal. I was literally after the show, I'm sitting there. I'm like, I think it was me and Shark Boy, and we're having a couple beers, whatever. And they're gonna say, "When are we gonna have the dress? What dress?"
Bro, you didn't go over there though for the actual shows, right?
No.
Bro, you know who I spoke to yesterday that went over there for the actual shows? And I never spoke to this guy before. I never met him before. The reason I brought him on my show was because of his new bionic penis gimmick, which I popped huge for. Joey Ryan, bro. I didn't even know he was associated with TNA and worked the India tours.
Yeah, he was over there.
Bro, we got to get down to business, and we're going to BS, and we're going to be 3 hours in before we talk about business. But let me ask you one more thing about India. Was there any thought in bringing Glenn Gilbernetti over there with you and just leaving him there?
I wish I had done it. He's a louse. Bro, he is such a louse. He goes on Twitter and talks negatively about Notre Dame, just trying to get me riled up. And then I call him. He's like, "Hey, good talking to you, man."
And Irish, you know why I love you? Bro, in 2015, besides Irish, who uses the word louse, bro?
Ow.
That's phenomenal, bro. And we're gonna talk, bro. We have to have a whole other conversation for the Swerve. But I want to educate the audience out there now on Wrestling Inc. Because a lot of times there's a huge misunderstanding of everybody's role. So I want to start with the writer, Pat. I want to start with myself, and this is how it's because everything starts with the writer. Everything starts with the pen to the paper. And basically what I would do is, what's important to the writer is the finish of the match. Because the finish of the match is going to lead to the next part of the story. There's
the direction. Where are we going?
Where are we going? So it's very important for me, like, this has to be the finish.
What did I always used to ask you in the meetings? Where are we going from there?
Right, exactly.
Did I always say that?
Yes. So from a writer's perspective, all I really care about is the finish. This has to happen in the finish so we get from point A to point B. Now, what I used to do, Pat, was I used to envision the match in my mind, and I would be, I would be very thorough. I would lay out a match the way I saw it. But, Pat, I'm laying this match out like here's an idea for the match. Here's some things you could do in the match. But I know basically the wrestler and the agent are the professionals when it comes to laying down the match. So now I write it out. We need the finish. I give you some bullet points, suggestions for the match. At that point, it gets handed off to Pat Kenney. Pat Kenney's got the match between Kurt Angle and James Storm. Okay? Now, as the agent of the match, once the writer hands off the script to you, Pat, take it from there, your role, your duties, working with the talent, how you take it from there.
Well, usually there's one, like I always say, there's only one spotlight. You can't have two. When you have two spotlights, you have problems. Exhibit A, Van Halen, David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen.
Bro, why do we have to bring Van Halen into every discussion?
I had to slip it in. So what happens is the next thing that I'll do is I'll talk with those guys to get a feel of what it is that they want. What do they want?
Now, Pat, let me ask you this. Do you do that first before you even have any idea in your head? Or do you have something in your head first and then go to the talent?
I'll usually.
Bro, she's photobombing the video, little Quinn. That's Quinn, ladies and gentlemen. Irish Pat has become very domesticated. This gimmick is dead. He's gray. His daughter, the beautiful Quinn, is photobombing the interview.
He's dead. He's dead. Hold on for bro. Hold on for 1 second.
All right. Obviously, Irish has no control as a parent. Look, he's all over the place now. He's leaving in the middle of an interview. Ladies and gentlemen, this has never happened before. I've never had a talent leave in the middle of the interview to care for their children. But this is what happens when you leave Irish Pat alone home with the kids. Unbelievable, bro. Wait a minute. If Glenn Gilbernetti would have saw that act of unprofessionalism, all right, get your Van Halen gimmick in there like you always do.
There's only one spotlight, so the first thing I always want to know is who are we highlighting? Because you can't highlight, and I think one of the biggest problems that WWE has is they haven't figured out who they want to highlight.
Who they want to get over.
Who's getting over? Right. That's it. Because at the end of the day, that's it. So then once I have that, then I'll have an idea of what I want to do. But I don't want to impose that completely upon the talent, because then that restricts the creative process, which is the whole thing for the business. And I think we've pulled a lot of that creative process. I think we pulled a little bit too much out of the hands of the wrestler, and we need to go back to the days a little bit of giving them a little bit more say, but also holding them more responsible for what happens.
Irish, let me stop you right there, and I'm going to keep interjecting because I'm curious about some of the things that you're saying. Now, you just made a statement that I agree with. I think we've taken some of the creativity away from the artist who is the wrestler. Why do you think that is, bro? What happened to dictate that?
I think the biggest thing is television has taken over wrestling. As it has every sport. I mean, look at what time does the World Series start? 8:45 or something. It kills it for kids. That's why if you look at the demographics of baseball, it's guys our age watching it.
Right.
Because we're the only ones staying up. Wrestling has now become a television-driven business because that's where the money is. So because of that, it's being produced like a television show instead of a sporting event. A sporting event is still a sporting event. A wrestling show is now a television show that needs to be produced, and you have to care for the parameters that is calling the shots, which for TNA is now currently Destination America, but will be Pop TV starting January 5th. So that's the biggest thing, is television now drives it. The other point, and everyone forgets this about the WWE. The WWE is a publicly traded company.
Mm-hmm.
So Vince McMahon, he has a direct order to make sure that the stockholders are happy. And the stockholders don't care about 5-star matches. The stockholders don't care about who's the internet darling. All the stockholders care about is getting that printout that says their share is 16. What is it now? 16 or something like that. $16, I think. 16.26. That's all they care about. So, but the main thing with wrestling is now it's a television show.
Yeah.
So
it's tight. It's got to be tight. It's got to be precise.
Yeah, you can't have a moment of dead air time, because air time is so expensive.
Yeah.
To do that, for TNA, Pop TV, Destination America now, Pop TV starting January 5th. Have I said that enough?
You said, yeah, and I'll plug it too. Listen, that's what we're here for. We want people to watch TNA, no question about that.
WWE is a slave to Universal. Yeah. Who's USA? USA's Universal.
All right, so Irish, so now you got the script from me. You see the finish. You know who we want to get over in the match. And, bro, that is a huge problem with the WWE. They have no idea who they want to get over. So now you got James and Kurt, 2 seasoned veterans in front of you. Give me the conversation.
Here's what we want. What do you guys have in mind? And then it's basically my job to filter these ideas. You're dealing with a guy like Kurt, he's always got ideas. The top guys always have ideas.
Hmm.
You know, and I think a lot of that comes from from an experience level and a confidence level, and then the mid card guys are more like, can you help us? We don't, because they don't want to, be too aggressive and seem like, they're stepping on toes.
Right, right.
Yeah, and a confidence thing, Um, so then I'll filter the ideas. I'll make suggestions. Um, and then from there, you just kind of funnel everything into a final process. Um, I try not to impose too much and say, this is what we're doing, unless I know it's what needs to be done. So at the end of the day, the wrestler is looking out for themselves,
Yeah.
which you have to do. You have to do that.
Pat, that was my next question to you. And this is what I want people to understand. This is why to me, bro, Pat, I used to say this all the time. To me, the agent is the hardest role to fill in wrestling. I've said that forever.
No question.
Yeah, a writer is easier to get. A producer is easier to get the agent. Because here's the thing, man. The agents have to be wrestlers that are smart, that have been there and done that. Because, bro, this is what people don't understand. You're dealing with egos. And wrestlers are trained, nothing against them personally. You know this. You are a wrestler. Wrestlers are trained to get themselves over. So a lot of times, Pat, you have these two talents in front of you. You know who the office wants to get over, but as they're coming up with ideas and suggestions, as independent contractors, they want to get themselves over, and that's totally understandable. How do you work through that?
My job is to protect the vision of the company. That's my job. I have to make sure that the vision of what the company wants, what's best for business, quote unquote, is carried out. So I have little tricks, and then I just have plain, very rarely have I ever had to say, listen, this is how we're doing it. And if you don't want to do it, I'll go to the higher ups and I'll explain to them you don't want to do it, and we'll get someone else. I think I've had to say that maybe 3 times.
But Pat, when you know one of the talent involved in the match is blatantly trying to get themselves over, and you know it, bro. You're a wrestler. You know it immediately like that. How do you usually handle that?
Can I talk to you for a second? We go over to the side, and I say, look, I get it, bro. I get it. I was there. It sucks. It sucks when it's not about you, but it's not about you today. We do this. The key is we got to do it as best as our ability. That's what performers do. Okay? I mean, shit. Van Halen took Really Got Me, and they made it a great song.
Again with the Van Halen.
They took Dancing in the Streets, and they made it a rock song.
Pat,
it was a performer.
Pat, you know what people don't understand? And I really want you to get into this. I want to hear this from Irish Pat, the professional. Listen, Irish, you know the internet. Anybody could do this job. They all could do this job. Right? Pat, you know what blew me away with my job? You know what was the most important thing as a writer, and I mean you as an agent, and I want you to get into this a little bit. Bro, do you not have to be a psychologist?
Oh, my God.
And be in the mind of every single person, bro?
Oh, I got to work. I work with the girls. I work with the knockouts in TNA. Do you know? I mean, bro, I have to be an agent, producer. I have to be a psychologist. I have to be a babysitter. Some of them have children. We're talking over matches. Can you hold it for a second? Sure. Now I'm dad. It's crazy, but bro, people don't understand how complex of a job the behind the scenes is, because you're dealing with egos, and egos are a great thing. Egos get you in front of 50,000 people, and egos also get you out of performing in front of 50,000 people, because you just, people are crazy, but egos, pro wrestlers are not regular people. They're not regular people. God took these people, and you're involved in it, and so am I, and we're all crazy. We're nuts. And he invented this business, this professional wrestling business, and he put all the crazy people in it and said, go bother each other. And that's what we do. We bother each other. But, I always say, if you look at, I would love to do a study on the top guys of all time and see the reoccurring personality traits, because I've seen it, and who's come through the doors of TNA that I've worked with: Hogan, Flair, Mick Foley, Kurt Angle, guys like these who come through, and Nash Hall, bro, I remember when Terry stuck me with Nash and Hall.
Yep, absolutely.
Bro, but it was great because I would sit there and listen. I would learn from them. I'd sit there and I'd learn things from them, and then I would take that and I'd go use it in another match, because they couldn't use it in their match. So I'd take it and I'd go use it in another match, and they were, those guys are so entertaining. Oh my God. They would sit in the back room. Remember that? They would all sit in the back room, and I'd go in there, and it took like, hours sometimes, but I would learn so much from those guys. And, I would eventually get what I needed to get because I would let them talk, and that's the key to sales. Isn't talking, it's listening. Right. It's listening and directing, listening and directing. And, it's just, the whole process is it's like a draining. Bro. Yeah. Remember at the end of the night, we'd all be out eating. We'd all be like this. Oh,
yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what it is, Pat. These people, they can't understand it. Like, I know you went through this, Pat. Pat, literally, when I would sit down and write a show, as I'm writing the show, part of what is being taken into heavy consideration is, okay, how is this performer going to feel about this? That affects my writing. I'm taking that. What's Kurt's reaction going to be to this? What hole is Kurt going to poke into this? What isn't Kurt gonna like about this? That's the same thing with you. When I give you after I take all that into consideration, I'm now handing it off to you. You've got to be one step ahead at all times and know what these guys are thinking, are going to say, and how they're going to react before they even look at the instructions you give them.
Oh, there's a gene that all performers have, and I call it's one-upmanship. And I haven't wrestled since that last ECW pay-per-view I did, and the only reason I did it was because Dreamer asked me and you had asked me. Also, I had considered myself done. But even to this day, doing little things, when I feel that the eyes are upon me, the green light goes on and I kick it into overdrive. Just in everyday life, being a father or whatever. You can never get rid of that gene, ever. And that's the thing with wrestlers, is it's a natural reaction for them to any type of entertainer, to when they're thrust into the spotlight, they're not going to back down. They're going to flip a switch. And you're going to laugh and you're going to go, oh, here you go, Van Halen again. But if you had Eddie Van Halen, Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, and Eric Clapton all on a stage playing George Harrison's While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and them trading solos, the four of those guys would be trying to outdo each other to the hilt. To the hilt, because that's the gene. That's the entertainer gene, and you can never take that away. And now so put upon that these, but the other side of it is everyone has to be produced. Everyone, from the greatest attraction in the history of the business, Hulk Hogan, to the lowest level job guy. Everybody has to be. You always have to have another set of eyes on you to tell you something. It may be the littlest thing, but everybody has to be produced.
Pat, I want to ask you how you handle this because, bro, listen, I think February is 4 years, bro, since I've been around TNA. And obviously, bro, I would say my last 5 years were chock full of this. And I'm not, listen, bro, I don't bury people. I don't bring up names. There's no need for it. But you and I used to discuss this a lot on the job. And I want to see how you handle this as an agent. I'll tell you how I handled it as a writer. Bro, taught probably my last 5 years or so with TNA, a lot of the generation meers came through the door. And what I'm talking about are young kids that are entitled, young kids that knew more than me in their 5 minutes in the business than I learned in the last 20 years. Now, Pat, I know the way I used to handle it was, you know what, bro? I used to immediately, I would get the attitude, they know more than me. So the way I used to handle it is fine, no problem. Go out there and do what you think is right, because I knew, Pat, they would fall flat on their face, and I knew that's how they would learn. When they thought they knew and you let them do it, and they, part of my expression, shit the bed. And I dealt a lot of that my last 5 years at TNA when these guys were coming through. As an agent, what was your way to work with talents? Like you said, bro, you have a Kurt Angle that's going to be as respectful as possible. That, bro, you could lay out the crappiest match in the world. He'd do it.
And get the crowd going.
He'd do it. He'd do it. But then on the other hand, now you got these young kids that know more than Irish Pat will ever know. How did you handle that, bro?
So the first thing I always referred to was my experience. And I think this is where, I'm sure there's a ton of people out there right now who are saying, what does this guy know about drawing money? Because he never drew any money. And my response to that is, I learned because I became a student of the game, because that's what I had to do to survive. Where a top guy has the reactionary vision of what they want to do, where the lower card guys are studying it more because they're trying to go up to the top. The top guys are trying to protect their spot. The mid card guys are trying to go up and get that spot, so they become more students of the game. And if you really look at the history of the agent through the years, it's never been the real top guys who have been agents. It's always been, upper mid card guys and, guys who may have gotten a little taste of the main event, but never really super top draws in the business. And ESPN, I remember ESPN doing a study on coaches, between the success rate as a coach and the success rate as a player. And it was in the early 2000s. I remember the coach who had the most success as a coach, who was the most successful player, was Torrey. And Torrey was he was an MVP for 1 year, but he's not a Hall of Famer, right? Mm-hmm. Not as a player. As a coach, he probably is, but not as a player. And I think it's more of a communication aspect with the mid-card guys and upper mid-card guys who become agents as opposed to top guys. So I would always use experience, and I'd say, listen, I was in your shoes, and I totally get it. Because, bro, I had the same mentality as far as sports. Like, I remember in college, I was difficult to an extent because I thought that I knew it all. My father used to tell me that. He's like, your biggest problem was you always thought, you were smarter than the coach, and you're not, because there's no substitute for experience. So I would always try to relate to them and say, listen, I get it. I've been there. You think your idea is better than mine, but trust me when I tell you, I've tried it that way and it doesn't work. And here's why. And if they are passionate about their vision, then I will give in and say, let's do it your way, because you're going to put more effort and enthusiasm in doing it your way than doing it my way. But the most important thing is the conversation that happens afterwards. And then you go and you take them to the side and you explain, here's why it didn't work. Here's how we can fix it. And here's how we can move going forward. That's the most important thing, is as soon as they come out of the ring, now they need the hug. They don't need the I told you so, because now like I used to call it damage control. I played baseball at VCU for a very, 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 very hard coach, very demanding. We used to call him the Bobby Knight of baseball. And I didn't understand a lot of things he did. But I always remember, if I got drilled in practice, he would pull me to the side afterwards and he'd say, and then it was the hug, and I don't mean physically, I mean emotionally. Listen, The reason why I'm on you about that is because I need you to play at a higher level, because your play directly reflects the pitching staff. Because I was a catcher, so it was always, just stuff like that. And it was the hug. When they come out of the ring, they need the hug, because a lot of these kids, the generation that you're talking about, it's social media. It's look at me, look at me, look at me. It's all about me, and they'll learn as they get older. We've learned it's not about you. It's about little Quinn running in here, and she wants me to help her put her dress.
Right.
Because Lord knows what she's doing in the guest room right now. I don't know.
She shut the door. I don't think that's a good idea. But anyway, Pat, I'm going to ask you a question. And as I'm thinking of this question, like, bro, I don't even know how I would answer this question. So I'm very curious to see how you would answer it. Pat, again, everybody can do our job. It's a piece of cake. We're all idiots. We have no idea what we're doing, yada, yada, yada. The fact of the matter is very few people can do this job. Here's what people don't understand, Pat. You're dealing with a Molotov cocktail? Molotov cocktail. Of two things, bro. Ego and paranoia. The combination of the two. Bro, what's more difficult in your spot for you to work through? The ego of the wrestler, the me, I got to get myself over, or the paranoia of whatever you lay out, whatever you say, the office is trying to kill me. What's more difficult as an agent to get over?
Ego. Paranoia you can dismiss with facts. Because I've had many of those discussions. They're trying to get rid of me. They're burying me. They're going to get rid of me. They're not going to sign they're not going to re-up my contract. And, I don't want to sound like a Bible thumper or anything like that. But, like I always tell them, I said, listen, it is what it is. It's, God has a plan for everyone, and it's going to take its course. So sometimes we just got to kind of go, put the hands up on the roller coaster and, do the best we can to enjoy the ride and try to, steer it in the direction we need to go. But, paranoia you can dismiss with facts. Ego, wow, it's tough. Ego's hard. What do you think?
Oh, bro, I think ego, because the wrestling business was built on. I'm an independent contractor. This is not a team environment. This is not a team atmosphere. The more I get myself over, the more money I make. That's been drilled in the minds of wrestlers for 50 years.
Back in the day, and when I say back in the day, I mean the 70s. And the only reason that I talk about it and know about it is because I've heard the stories from the old time guys. Think of guys like the Sheik, not the Iron Sheik, but the Sheik, Farhat, Abdullah. Who else was notorious? Stan Hansen. Guys who would not do, Brody. Guys who would not put guys over because they would protect their own business. But these guys were monster draws back in the day.
Right.
Monster draws. And the beauty of that was back in the day, okay, I don't like what you're doing with me. That's fine. I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's what's missing too.
Pat, let me ask you this, because I tell people this all the time, okay? I worked with The Rock. And the reason why Rock has become one of the biggest movie stars on the planet, that I tell everybody this, was real simple. He was smarter than everybody else. Now, Pat, you have worked with the top guys of the business. You just ran the gamut. How much do you see? Bro, of course they're top guys. They can work. They've got a great character. They know how to play the crowd. They have all that. But how much is intelligence a part of their success?
Gigantic. It's gigantic. It's probably the X factor. It's the thing that people don't. Oh, bro, look, she's coming back into the room.
She got the cat?
What do you got now? Another dress.
Another dress.
Bro, it's dress up day here. She's off of school. It's dress up day.
Bro, if Glenn Gilberti could see this, I hear him now. That was the most ridiculous thing I ever saw.
He doesn't. How can he know about children? He's emotionally detached.
Bro, can you imagine this guy having kids, Glenn Gilberti?
Oh, good Lord.
Oh my God.
But intelligence is the X factor. It's gigantic. You know, these guys, they all have a vision. Um, they know what they want to do, where they want to go, and there's no compromise to it because it's their vision. But what? Yeah, go ahead. And there's no compromise to it. Again, here's a Van Halen reference, but I'm reading a book right now. It's called Van Halen Rising, and it's about take that one off. And it's about Van Halen's early days as a legendary Southern California party band. I don't know if you ever heard the stories, but when they would play at these outdoor parties, okay, they would draw upwards of like 3,000 people at these backyard parties before they got signed because they had created a buzz about themselves. Mm-hmm. And you know what the one thing I'm learning in this book is? Musically, Van Halen is Eddie Van Halen. Everything else is David Lee Roth. The vision, the
show.
The show, it's David Lee Roth. He drove the bus.
Yeah.
He drove the bus. And he's probably a savant intelligence-wise because he knew what he wanted the thing to look for. He knew the direction he wanted to go. There's a great story in there. They play their first gig ever at Gazzari's, which was a famous place back in the day. He picks up Alex and Eddie, and they get in the car, and they're wearing jeans and T-shirts. And he says, "What are you doing? Where's your stage clothes?" "No, we're wearing this." "No, you're not." Takes them to the mall and buys them what he calls stage clothes. Okay, put it down. Time out, bro. Again.
I go ahead, bro. Look at it, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, I excuse Irish Pat for being, but the guy, he is Father of the Year. I mean, he definitely has my vote for being Father of the Year. It's dress up day with little Quinn. You got to give the guy the credit. He's trying to do this interview. He's trying to dress up his daughter. It's a beautiful thing.
That don't fit.
And he's trying to talk about Van Halen. That's the hysterical part to me, bro.
Okay. Go ahead, bro. Talk. I'm listening.
All right, so, bro, so intelligence is the key factor in this thing. Look at him. Unbelievable, bro. I've never seen anything. Bro, what would the Grand Wizard say? What would the Grand Wizard say if I was interviewing him and his daughter came in the room and wanted to celebrate dress-up day? What would he say, bro?
I don't know. He'd say this dress is way too small to be on her. Oh, there it is. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. There you go. Hold on.
Bro, genius Irish Pat. Can't we just put one dress over and tell her that dress she looks like a princess in that dress?
Bro, the vision we talk about, I just talked about?
Yes.
She's got it.
Yeah, okay. All right, so finish the Van Halen with the clothes. You're not wearing that.
You're not wearing that. So he takes them to the mall and he buys them stage clothes and then tells everyone in the band, moving forward, we're wearing stage clothes every time we play. Because he had a look.
I want to get this phone.
He had a look that he wanted to, the band to look like. He wanted them to look differently. So he was not going to settle for anything less than that vision. And he did not compromise on it.
Yeah. All right, listen, Pat, we're gonna wrap this up because listen, I think you got to take care of Quinn over there. Who knows how many wardrobe changes there are going to be. But, Pat, I'm really glad that you shed light on the writer and the agent and the psychology in dealing with the boys because it's something, bro, if you're a fan, and I respect all the fans, but you'll never understand it unless you're a part of it.
Bro, it's you're a huge Giants fan. I'm a huge Yankees fan. We're both A-level fantasy baseball players. Could we ever be a GM for a baseball team? Absolutely not.
No.
No. That's how it is. We can sit there and say, oh yeah, well, I won the league twice. You've won the league twice. We could do it. No, we can't.
No, we can't.
The whole nother level.
And that's how I always look at it. I mean, Pat, we're talking about winter meetings now. And, as a Giant fan, they just paid Jeff Samardzija $90 million. And, immediately with me, the guy's won 40 games. How you paying him that kind of money? But where I stop myself is, listen, bro, the GM of the Giants did not get that job by winning a lottery. He got that job based on experience, years in the game, knowledge, knowing the psyche of players. So when they make a move like that, even though I question it, I leave it up to the professionals. That's why they're there.
He's being paid millions and millions of dollars to make decisions for the owner who's making millions and millions of dollars.
Right.
It's that simple. Why is this guy being paid so much money to make decisions? There's a reason. It's not because, he watches Monday Night Raw and tweets out that, he doesn't like the transitions in the main event match.
Right, exactly. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. We're going to hop over now to the Swerve, Pat. We're going to talk about that. But I want to wrap up this interview for WrestlingInc.com. And I want to thank you, Pat, for shining the light on the job of an agent and, literally shedding some light on things that wrestling fans might not be aware of.
Bro, do you think it's a fair assessment to say that an agent is that creative? The head of creative is the head coach. The writers underneath him are the coordinators. And then the producers / agents are the position coaches.
Not really, bro, because you're not going to believe this, Pat. I always looked at the producers / agents, and screw producers. You guys are the agents. I'm old school. I always looked as the agent working hand in hand with me because it was a whole different skill set, bro. And that's where I always tapped out. You were the wrestlers. You were in that ring. I wasn't. You knew. So I always looked at that job as at a level of being equal with mine because it was an entire different skill set I didn't have. So.
What was the one thing? Because I know you had a hand in bringing in the agents at one point, at least. What was the one thing you wanted?
Is it 3663?
I know
663.
What's the one thing you wanted your agents to have? What was the one?
Pat, you want to know the hardest thing in the world? This is the hardest thing in the world. And this is a credit to you. This is a credit to Al Snow. Who else is agenting there now that I worked with?
Did you ever work with Shane Helms?
I didn't work with Shane Helms, but I've heard a ton of good things about him.
Oh, you know who's doing really well is Abyss.
Abyss, another guy, Abyss. Here's the key, bro. This is the most important thing than anything. What do you think I'm going to say?
Communication.
No, not even that, bro. Harder than communication. Everybody's got to like the guy. Everybody's got to. Bro, how easy is it to bury the agent and get in fights with the agent and not like the agent? It's got to be somebody that's very likable. It's almost like, oh my God, if I have a problem with Pat Kenney, I better look myself in the mirror. And look at the guys.
Oh, I almost got a couple fights.
But I'm just saying, bro, look at you. You, bro, everybody loves you. Everybody loves Al Snow. Everybody loves Abyss. Bro, what about perhaps the greatest agent in the history of the business? No, Pat Patterson.
Oh, he's not he's not, maybe, he is.
But who didn't love Pat Patterson? Who didn't love Jerry Briscoe?
Yeah.
That's the most important thing, bro. You got to be liked by everybody. That's the most important thing, bro.
Yeah, because I think it makes the wrestler then question himself when he is defiant against the agent. That's a good point. I never thought of that.
Bro, I've worked with agents that have been the other way. And bro, I'll tell you, quite frankly, one of them was Jeff Jarrett. When Jeff Jarrett laid out a match, it was, this is my way or the highway, and this is the way it's going to be. There was no room for discussion or anything like that. And you were always getting this. But that's why it's got to be somebody that's likable, whereas if they're having a problem, they're second-guessing themselves because the agent is so easy to get along with and willing to do whatever they want to do.
That's interesting. No,
All right, listen, let's wrap this up, Pat, because we got a whole other conversation coming. Thanks for joining me here on Wrestling Inc. Broke and laying out in detail the job of the agent.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, I will be back here next week, Monday night, the Raw review right after the show. I'll see you then. Take care, everybody, WrestlingInc.com. You can follow me 7 days a week on VinceRussoBrand.com.